tonight's demo will be on Chine Colle. So it'll be a shorter demo. There'll be more time tonight to work on things. We should probably talk about the suite a little bit too after the demo. So Chine Colle, so it's C-H-I-N-E, new word, C-O-L-L-E, Chine Colle. Let's see that. It's basically taking a thin piece of paper and gluing onto the back of a thicker piece of paper. So for the thin piece of paper, we could use the washi, so we used it already a little bit. So the nice thing about washi is it's a really nice paper to print on. It really absorbs ink well, you get really nice detail. And you can leave it as it is, so print on washi by itself is totally fine. But the washi is thinner, so it tends to, over time, depending on how you handle it, how you store it, can get damaged. So use a thinner paper. It's a little bit floppy. So what we do is we back it onto a piece of cotton rag paper, like Somerset or BFK. So that gives the paper a backing, so you get more support for the paper. Also, you get the color change. So that yellow here, that subtle yellow, that's the color of the washi. And it shows up really nicely against the white of the paper. So if you go to see Jacob's show at the Craft Council, all of them in Chine Colle. Yeah. And another example here. There's a lot of color, but this background color here, that's the color of the paper. So this kind of
like the beigey
color, yeah.
Green.
Yep.
Is that paper originally beige and green together?
The green's been printed. We'll start color next week. That's gonna be fun. It's usually beige. Beige, a lot of beiges, off-whites.
There is a green.
There's a green. The green Katakata. Quite nice. The colors tend to be quite subtle. You can get washi that are heavily dyed. I've seen really bright red and bright blue. I probably wouldn't use them for Chine Colle because the color tends to be fugitive, and when you put it in water, some of the color will bleed out. So when you wet it, you'll get kind of red everywhere, for example, or blue. It's a nice paper though, just on its own. So, yeah, Chine Colle. So first you'll need a print on a washi. It can be black and white or color. The most important thing is to make sure the ink is dry. So if the ink is still drying, it's a little bit tacky, you might end up damaging your print, and it takes longer to dry than you think. So I'll probably give it a few days, 3-4 days, even a week, just to make sure it's really dry. If it's color, it's going to take longer to dry because you have multiple layers being printed on top of each other. If it's black and white, it'll take less time to dry.
So you didn't dry that between layers?
When I was printing?
Yeah.
This one was multiple prints. I'm trying to remember. Was that 3 colors? I think I did 2 colors and then let it dry and then I put the last layer on. And then you'll need a piece of cotton rag paper. So it has to be archival cotton rag paper. It can't be the cardstock, the Cougar or Lynx paper that I mentioned at the beginning of the class, that cheaper paper to print on. The reason for that is the cardstock has sizing or glue in it that actually interferes with the glue that I'll be using for the Chine Colle. So it has to be the more expensive cotton rag paper.
So does that come in a great big sheet too? You just
Yeah,
cut it, or?
this is a quarter sheet.
Okay.
Yeah, So a full-size sheet of cotton rag, and they're usually 22 by 30. That's a standard size.
And you just cut it the same way you did last
Yeah.
time.
Just tear
Go
it.
big, I don't remember, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot to upload the video. I'll do that this week. It'll be a busy week. Things calm down now, but yeah. For your cotton rag paper, let's say you want, well, there's two ways to go to it. Give yourself a nice margin. I like to give myself at least an inch, maybe more. I don't know. I don't think there's a point in doing a Chine if the backing paper is like a quarter of an inch away on your image. You can't see that nice change in color between the backing paper and the washi. That's personal preference though, but it just looks nice. And you'll need to make a registration sheet, so we went through that last week. So almost like you're going to print it. So I made 2 lines for my print, and then 2 lines for my backing paper. And that goes underneath a piece of mylar, just to keep everything clean and protected. And then you'll need another piece of mylar, smaller piece. That's just a little bit bigger than your print on your washi. So about 1/8 of an inch bigger. So if your print, for example, is 5 by 6, then you want to make your piece of mylar 5 1/8 by 6 1/8. So just a little bit bigger.
Than like the actual piece of
Than the
washi.
actual piece of washi,
Okay.
yeah. That's a generalization, because we're going to, we're going to wet the paper, and when you wet the paper, it's going to expand a little bit. So we want to account for that expansion when we cut our piece of mylar. So usually 1/8 of an inch is good. Some washi will vary. I've seen washi, when you wet it, it expands by 1/4 of an inch. It's quite a bit. If you want to be really precise, you can wet your paper, lay it down on the mylar, and then trace it. And then you get like, it's really accurate. Or else you can just.
Does it has to be the exact
No.
size when it's wet, or can you give yourself a little, like if it's a little too big and then
Oh,
maybe your paper doesn't matter?
You can go a little bit bigger. For this, because we're doing this by hand, it doesn't matter as much. If you use a press, instead of mylar, we use a thin metal plate. So then the plate will emboss the paper. So then you have to think about how you want the embossment to show up on your paper. So you might want, inch away from your image and have this embossment going around your image. Traditionally though, we try to get it as close to the paper as possible when it expands when you wet it. So. But you could, if you always want to play around with that convention and try to do as much embossment you can. So that's that. Aside. So with your backing paper, you want to make it damp. So we use water and spray bottle. Then we're going to use a garbage bag.
That's cotton rag, right?
No.
Yes.
Yes, cotton rag. I'm using Somerset. The specific paper is Somerset for this one, but it has to be a cotton rag, and it can't be Stonehenge, which is kind of the bottom end of the nicer paper. Stonehenge also has a lot of sizing in it, so you're probably looking at either Somerset or BFK. So I just spritz the paper a little bit. I put it in the garbage bag. I'm just going to let it sit for a few minutes. When you do this with paper, when you spritz it or soak it and then throw it in a bag, it's called damp boxing. So if the printmaker said a damp box some paper, that's what they did. They wet some paper and put it in a bag. Depending on what you're doing, sometimes you put that box of paper overnight. So if I'm doing etchings, for example, I'll often spritz my paper, put it in a bag, let it sit overnight, and print the next day to let it soak. So for the glue, I like to use rice paste. So rice paste.
Okay.
So I think Hues sells nori paste. It's the same thing. This is Moto. I think it's the same company, just in a different container. It's basically just rice starch. I've seen instructions how to make your own rice paste. You just take rice and cook it for a really long time to get all the starch. For that, you'd have to either refrigerate it or use it pretty soon. This has a preservative in it that prevents it from getting moldy.
Is
So you
this the same stuff?
Yep. There's also a wheat paste if you want to try that out, but this is what I use. So the nice thing about the rice paste is it's non-toxic. And it's reversible. So if I do a Chine, for example, here I did a Chine, and I decide later on I want to put it on a different backing paper, I can actually soak the paper, and the print will lift, and I can re-Chine it if I want to. Or if the backing paper gets damaged, then I can remove the print just by soaking it in a sink with water. Let it sit for a while, and then it'll peel off.
So it's like eraser.
Kind of. Yeah,
Okay.
so you can reverse it. And it's acid free as well, so it won't damage your print. Because there's easier ways to glue things together. You can use a spray glue, for example, or spray adhesive. That's quite toxic and usually not reversible. So once you lay it down, it's stuck. So, rice paste. Need a bowl. So the rice paste is quite thick. It's too thick on its own, so I should put a little bit in a bowl. Something like that. And then I use a spritz bottle and just water it down, get the right consistency. So I got a bamboo brush here. You don't have to use a bamboo brush. If you have a paintbrush, that's fine too.
What do you aim for consistency?
The equivalent. Not too thick, not too thin. I just equivalent to maple syrup's too runny. Almost like a gel.
Yogurt?
Yogurt's not bad. Yeah. A kefir? Like you don't want it running. Better. Running, but you want it spreadable, so it's kind of like this. As opposed to here. So you can see the difference. That's the straight up bottom. This is go a little bit thinner. So I want to thin it down so it's more like what it's like on the bottom there.
Okay, it's like a glue kind of
Yeah.
texture.
Like a glue texture. Why don't we just call it a glue texture?
Like, looks like white wood?
Yeah, that's way better than kefir.
Okay, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's
Like-
straight at the bottom. This is more down here, but it's supposed to be like.
Alright.
If I'm shinkoling a lot of prints, every once in a while I'll spritz it with just a quick spray of water. I might start drying out a little bit. Alrighty, So, next step to do is to wet my paper. So I'm going to do the back side of it. So your print will look, so you're just doing the back side. So it's front side down on the mylar. So this is the mylar. This is the print side. And we're wetting the back side of the paper. Basically, you want to center it on that mylar best you can. So print side, back side. So you'll want your print sopping wet. So what you want to do is blot it, either with a towel or a clean rag. So you just want it damp. So you want to blot it until there's no shiny spots. So, notice before it was quite damp and shiny, and now it's still moist to the touch, but it's not shiny anymore. That's good. Cool. And then I'm going to take my thin down rice paste, and I want to start from the center, and with my brush, cover the back of the print with the rice paste. So I'm doing this on the table, but I'm starting in the center and then working up from the center in directions. And then again with a clean rag or a towel, you just want to blot off any excess glue. So you just have a thin layer of glue. We're doing this by hand, so it's a little bit thicker, it's okay. If you're using a press, you want to make sure it's not too thick because it's using more pressure and the glue can actually squish out, which is bad. So there's a very thin layer of glue on the back. So that goes print down on your registration sheet. Like so. And then I'm going to take my paper, which has been soaking in the garbage bag. And then with newsprint, I'm just going to blot it. So you want to remove excess water. And again, you're looking for no shiny spots. You just want the paper damp. You don't want it soaking wet. And that goes on top. So.
Question.
Yes.
I forgot like the orientation of that big cotton rag. When you spray on the cotton rag, are you putting on top of the one you got sprayed or behind the spray?
So it's the print on the washi face down with the glue side up,
Okay.
and then you put the backing paper on top of that.
And then the on top, so on top, is it the water spray back then or it doesn't matter actually?
Both papers have been dampened.
Did you spray both sides of the cotton rag?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah, I did at the
Oh,
beginning.
you bring
Yeah.
both sides. Okay. So it doesn't matter at this point.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we're going to use a spoon or another burnishing device, and we're just going to burnish it like we're going to print it.
So that cotton red that was at the back side and a front
Ideally, if you
side?
can remember, the front side will go down,
Okay,
but if you forget, it's not the end of the book.
okay.
Because we're not printing on it per se. And when you peel it off, you get the shinkoi.
Nice.
It's nice, yeah. So again, you're just gluing a thinner piece of paper into the thicker piece of paper, but it does give you a nice look.
So when you do that, when you don't orientate, I think last week you were talking about making the bottom.
Oh,
Bigger.
more? Yeah. So this one I just centered, and I can tear it after.
Oh, okay.
But you could make the borders on
Okay.
the bottom. And then- so that's that. So the paper is still wet, it's still damp. So after I just left this out, as it dries, it'll start curling up and wrinkling. And we want nice flat prints, ideally. So what you're going to do is you're going to stretch your paper onto a board. So at home, I have clean boards. This is what they have for Hues, these are for painting. So you can use these boards to cut if you want to, that's okay. But the paint actually won't go onto the paper, it's fine. So for taping, you can either tape from the front, or you can flip it over and tape from the back.
Is there better? One side better?
Not really, no. So we're going to use this, it's called filament tape. I call it fiber tape. So it's basically really strong tape that has pieces of fiberglass running through it. So we're going to tape down the edges of the paper to the board, and as the paper dries, it will contract. But because the edges are taped down, it's going to pull tight. So if you haven't done watercolor before, it's the same idea.
Has to be the specific tape.
This is the tape that I like to use.
It cannot be like painter's tape or
Painter's tape won't work. You have to think about something that will hold up to, because it actually, especially if it's a bigger print, there's actually a lot of force when it starts contracting.
okay.
So painter's tape won't work. Watercolor tape, have you ever used watercolor tape? So it's a brown tape that has an adhesive on one side that you wet. That works as well.
It won't like damage the paper when you tear out.
It will. So that's why taping from the back is an option. So if, for example, you're trying to get the most out of your paper, I would do it from the back. So if I tape this from the front, after when it dries, when I pull off the tape, it'll have a tape mark here. So you have to trim your paper down. So when you're planning your Chine Colle, if you're going to tape from the front, you have to give yourself a larger margin than you want for your final image, and then tear it down. So if you wanted a 2-inch border on the top and the sides, I'd leave an extra inch to tear after. But if you're trying to get the most out of your paper, let's say you want to use a half a sheet of paper, you want to use a full half sheet of paper, you can tape from the back. So you can put your print face down and then tape from the back. You'll still have that tape mark, but as long as you're careful, it's on the back and it doesn't show up on the front. So either way.
And how many days does that have to stay there?
I just leave it overnight. So it'll look like this. So half the tape's on the print, and half the tape's in the board. So it'll look like that. And then what I use is, you want to make sure it's really well stuck to your board and paper. So I use a tool called a burnisher. It has a curved, smooth bottom, and I just go over the tape like so. If you don't have a burnisher, you can use like a spoon, like a metal spoon. That's what I used when I was in university when I started out, because I didn't have a burnisher. So that works just as well. Just something that you can burnish to really make sure you go over.
Is this to carry off the air or something?
It's just to make sure that its tape is really stuck down.
Okay.
Yeah. Because again, once it starts drying and contracting, it puts a lot of force on that edge. So you want to make sure it's taped down really, really well, so it dries nice and flat. As you go along, so if you're doing more than one print, you might want to come back and just re-burnish. Kind of babysit it for a little while, and then let it sit overnight, and then you have a nice flat print that's been Chine Colle. Chine Colle.